Sports, 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 sports.
Hey there, sports fans. Welcome to Sportsball, part of the SPDM Crew podcast. We talk about sports related topics, but we focus on you, the fan, and what you like, whether it's a sport, team, event, athlete, or sports related news. Today, we're talking more college football. And specifically, we're talking about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And look, I have a handful of people in my life who are big sports fans, but there is nobody in my life that I have ever known that when their old voicemail would pop up, at the end they would say, "Go Irish." In fact, Bobbie, is that something that you still have on your voicemail?
I don't, but just because I changed carriers and I never recorded a new voicemail. But up until I changed that, I definitely did have, and as always, go Irish at the end of it.
And as always, go Irish. So, my guest is perhaps the biggest Notre Dame fan that I have ever known personally, but my old buddy from college, Bobbie Mitchell. Hello, how's it going?
It is going very well, Mike, and thanks for having me on the show.
Of course, of course. I have been trying to get Bobby on because when I first started coming up with the concept of sports ball, I was thinking about all the different teams that I would want to talk about. And Notre Dame wasn't one of them. But in reality, it was because Notre Dame is one of these historical programs that has reached like legendary status with their fandom. And when I first met you, that was one of the things that we talked about quite a bit was your Notre Dame fandom. So why don't we start there? How on earth did you become a Notre Dame fan? Even though I know the answer to this, but for our listener out there, what how did you become a Notre Dame fan?
So it's there's a couple different origin stories here. One of the biggest ones is probably I would consider it the most romantic, maybe. Was I don't remember what did it before this, but I remember sitting on my dad's lap or next to him on a couch, and Rudy was on. And I looked up at him very similar to the way young Rudy looks at his dad, and I was like, I think I'm a Notre Dame fan. And since that moment, I couldn't tell you what year that was, but I was pretty little. I've been a big Irish fan. The other part of the story that also comes in is I don't know what you want to call it. There was a sports day at school, and everybody could wear team gear. Well, I didn't really have any, and my dad brought me, and I still have it and almost wore it for good luck for tonight's broadcast. This old, just block letter, not even the monogram. It just says Notre Dame in navy blue on on a heather gray shirt.
Oh,
And
okay.
so he got that, and then from that point on, I was like tagged as a Notre Dame fan from that point on. But I probably already was at that point. There's been a few other things that like really reinstalled the fandom. Just one of the biggest things was like right after you and I met, finding out how many guys in our fraternity were Irish fans, and that really, I mean, besides like not to get too far into the Delta Sig part of this, but like you and Huff, past that, it was like the group of Delta Sig or the group of Notre Dame fans that I was like, these are my guys. So where else would I go? That kind of thing.
Right. No, I do remember that when we were both in college, we were both in the same fraternity, and yeah, there were just a ton of people there that were Notre Dame fans, and that was
Yeah.
always really cool that you all bonded over that.
Oh, for
I'm
sure.
I'm not much of a college football fan, but even I recognize it's the best way to put this, the history and the magistry. It sounds like a kind of a weird word to say for a college football program, but there is something about Notre Dame that just kind of sets them apart from a lot of other college programs. So why have you stuck with it all these years?
So it's interesting because so Notre Dame is my most hardcore fandom of anything. Even if you want to talk about movies or different things like that, just anything that I'm a fan of, the Irish are the number one. I think the biggest thing that made me stick with it is, and it was bad. Like we've had some nasty years in my life that I remember, and it got worse. Or, part of it got worse when I got a little older, and it was like way more cognizant of the Irish not being great. Was I think it's two things. Number one, I literally, as much as you can with a football program, I fell in love with it. It has a lot of the things I believe, like like things like setting a high standard and living to it. Like just you know this, I love everything. I'm a traditionalist at heart, so they have a million types of tradition at Notre Dame. Newt Rockne is a big thing because he was a guy who transcended a sport that was barely a thing when he became kind of the icon. Like we all know Nick Saban, Newt Rockne was 14 times what Nick was, and and died early. Like he died in a plane crash, I think, in his 40s, and it was, who could he have been? What would the sport have looked like if Newt hadn't died? That kind of thing. But so the tradition is a big thing, and then the other thing is it's kind of a big it's almost like a big middle finger to a lot of the people that like kind of want to, like, people hate Notre Dame for an irrational reason. Like I maybe sometimes my love for Notre Dame is just as irrational, where it's like, where you kind of you lose the plot, where you're just like, I don't care, this is it, where you become like not just a fan but a fanatic of what it is. And the other thing I will say is I also have always considered myself kind of a thinking man's whatever, whatever it is, whatever my topic, I'm like, I want to be the smart one. And
Okay.
I feel like Notre Dame gives you a lot of topics, like a lot of reasons to be a thinking man's college football fan. Like the smart fans are this or this or this. The dumb fans are this or that. Like, for example, huge Notre Dame fan, but I understand the blue bloods in college football, like Alabama and Michigan and Notre Dame and USC, and there's probably a small handful of others. If you're a fan of one of those teams, even of the USC and Michigan, who are not big Notre Dame allies, right? I'm like, okay, you get it.
You know what you're talking about.
You know what you're
Like a
talking
little
about.
bit. You're wrong, but you know what you're
Exactly right. Like you're wrong, but okay, I will. We'll agree to disagree. But then there's like people that become like hot team fans. Like a few, like when we were in school, Auburn was on the kind of a run where they were like they won a national or almost won a national championship, and some guys I knew around were like, oh, I'm a big Auburn fan, War Eagle, and then I was like, I always want to like go back and be like, are you still an Auburn fan? Because they were only good for like 3 years, so I have a hard time believing that.
right.
My favorite wannabe blue blood to really bag on right now is the Oregon Ducks because they like their fans think that they're good. Okay, like, and they have been a good team this year. Like they got beat by Ohio State, and they were good all year. Like I'm not going to say they didn't deserve their number one ranking, but they never won a national title, not even sniffed one. And they want to act like they're the Notre Dame or even Nebraska, who hasn't been around for a while, but one of those big blue bloods. And it's like, guys, you got to win one, and two or three help. Okay. So,
Well, and
uh,
then not only that, you have to be consistently good. And Oregon has what? They've been to a hand like I know for sure they've been to a national championship game and
mhm,
they got waxed in
yep.
that. And then they just like you said, they got waxed by Ohio State.
Mhm,
And like, bro, like you've been good for 10 minutes. Calm down,
right. And
right?
no, I agree. They have been good and relevant for a cup of coffee, right? And that's good. They are a hot team now, but we'll see where they get. Just like Clemson. Clemson won a couple titles, but they're nowhere near a blue blood. They're actually still more famous for falling apart than they are for winning championships. So, there's a bunch of things that go into that. And I won't like spend a whole lot of time talking about what separates a blue blood from another one, because you could have another guest on here who will tell you how, like, since Notre Dame until the other night hadn't won a major bowl in 31 years, doesn't qualify anymore either. That's a little ridiculous considering the brand, but there's that. But that was a long, great big way to tell you that I stick with it because the Notre Dame is tradition to me right now. An even better answer, Mike, is that Notre Dame is the last vanguard of tradition in college football. With all the realignment and the new playoff system and all that kind of stuff, Notre Dame is sticking to what they are, which is an independent college football program. They do things their way. They get their TV contracts. They kind of take a lot of guff. Like this whole playoff system was almost concocted to keep Notre Dame out of it, or to keep Notre Dame from playing for a title, even if they got into the playoffs. And, and that's another one of those things where these hard-headed, Notre Dame fans are like, well, we'll show you. And right now we're showing the world, all the teams that got buys, all the conference champions all got smoked. Well, Texas didn't get smoked, but they got beat.
Mhm.
Excuse me. I mean, Arizona State didn't get smoked. They made it close, but they got beat.
Right.
So, those kind of things are, that's the thing. While all this stuff is going around, well, we don't even have a Pac-12 anymore, legitimately. Texas is in the SEC and Colorado's back in the Big 12. Like all these changes, the one thing that stays the same is that school in Northern Indiana who's just like, no, we're going to do our thing,
Mhm.
and that kind of stuff.
There is something admirable about that, to stick to your guns, especially in the wake of so much money flowing from college football right now.
Yep.
And there is something admirable about that, but there's also something admirable about Notre Dame when they know who they want to play, and they usually stick to that. They don't veer very far from their traditional rivals, and they
Mhm.
still continue to do that, even though USC is now like in the what, Big 10 or
Yeah.
the Big 18 or whatever the fuck it's called now.
Right.
And so they kind of still stick close to all of the rivals, regardless of what conference they were in, are in, and they just stick with that. And that's just kind of one of the many reasons why Notre Dame has been such a storied program, is that college football, like most sports, is built on rivalries.
Mm.
And everyone, like a lot of schools that matter, they're looking at Notre Dame and they're like, no, 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 no. We're gonna go after you, and then we're gonna try to kick the shit out of you.
Right.
And there's something cool about that, because it gives you a little bit of swagger, I guess.
Okay.
So throughout the course of your Notre Dame fandom, give me some highlights, give me some lowlights, give me some of your favorite memories, favorite games that you've watched, been to, players even, and go the other way as well. Like, because there have been plenty of times when Notre Dame has just kind of been, it feels like they've been kind of just lost and still trying to figure it out, just like every other college program out there. So give me some highlights, give me some lowlights.
All right, so I guess we'll start. Okay, probably top five players ever. I'll just give you those real fast. Manti Te'o, no girlfriend jokes. Just love Manti. He was the heart and soul of that team in 2012 that ran into the buzzsaw that became the Alabama dynasty. But
When
they were.
when you say no girlfriend jokes, did you mean his invisible girlfriend,
Yes,
or
that's the very same.
okay, okay, cool. I just wanted to be sure. I
Now,
wanted
I
it
don't
to
know
be.
if you've ever checked out his IG, but his actual wife is stunning. So let's give the guy the W's as well as the L's here.
Is she real? Is it a real picture?
this
Have
one
you
is
have you
video.
seen have you
There's
seen
video
them in
evidence.
real life? Are you two friends? So
No,
no,
I'm not friends with her.
I will stop giving him shit, because God, that story broke perhaps at the worst possible
Oh
time.
my God, it cost that kid millions of dollars. And if you haven't seen the documentary on it, I think it was on Netflix. Go give that a look. Like people owe man some apologies.
Oh, for
Uh,
sure.
Poor guy just got. I mean, you want to sit here and say, oh, this big studly football player has to know, but you also have to remember, like, he's a sheltered religious Mormon kid from Hawaii. Like, it's and
Well,
the person that hoaxed him, like, they went hardcore into, getting into his life. So that was wild, just wild. But
right.
but it made him look silly. And that cost him some draft status, which really blows because he should have been like a top 10 pick easy that draft and just kept dropping. Speaking of guys who dropped further than I think they should, Brady Quinn is another one of my favorites. I love him, and I also love what he does now. When he was in the league, in a pros, he started a school for kids, for rookies to like make sure that they didn't
Like,
lose all their money.
do stupid shit.
Yeah, not and yeah, it was like here's some media training. Here's how to not be complete morons on social media. And also they're going to give you millions of dollars. Don't hire all of your cousins, brothers, and in-laws to do all this stuff for you. Hire professionals if you have to hire anyone. Also, it's okay to drive your own car. Like,
That sounds an awful lot like a league should be doing something like that for their rookies. as opposed to a fucking teammate.
Yeah, agreed. And and I think eventually, I don't remember, I kind of lost the train on this one, but I'm pretty sure the league did kind of co-opt what he was doing and said, "Hey, can you
At
come do
some
this
point,
for?"
yeah.
Yeah,
At some
which
point,
is
yeah.
awesome. I think the NBA started doing it too, and they were actually in a worse position with rookies going broke, so which is wild because the money's better in the NBA. So we got Brady, we got Manti. It's rough to say this because people like to make fun of him because he came in so brash, but I love Jimmy Clausen. I will always love Jimmy Clausen. I think the world of him. I think he got really bad. He got stuck with some really terrible NFL teams. But the highlight of my life is, or my highlight of my Jimmy Clausen fandom is when or non Notre Dame Jimmy Clausen fandom, is when he got to start for the Bears for a couple of games, and you could like I could see he was at Soldier Field, and I was watching Bears fans' faces be like, "This is the guy," because he got his helmet ripped off at one point and was like bloodied and like going after a guy or something like that. And you could see the Bears fans being like, "Oh, wait!" I'm like, "No, you don't want him. He's not. I love Jimmy, but he's kind of past his prime." Two more guys are more like me. The positions I played in high school. My other favorite is Quentin Nelson. Played offensive line for the Irish. Then he's played for the Colts, and he's just a big nasty dude. I love him a whole bunch. And then probably my favorite player, because we played the same position, is Justin Tuck, and he's a legend. I played for the Giants for a million years. Just those are probably my top five or so. There's some other players I've met, but no one knows them. Like Pat Kuntz is an amazing dude. He coaches at Indiana now, which I think is funny because we just stomped him a couple
Hmm.
weeks ago. So, but he's still a good dude. But yeah, so those are my favorite players of all time. Some players I don't like. Also, Jimmy Clausen. Only I love Jimmy, but we had this really bad interaction once where I took my son to a Notre Dame game and I tried to get his autograph. And when I went to get the Sharpie from my son to get his ball signed or whatever, Jimmy hopped in a golf cart and took off. And I was like, bro,
Motherfucker.
so mad.
No.
And then Mitchie was like, oh, my son was like, oh, what happened to Jimmy? He's like, I had to lie for. If I ever get to meet Jimmy Clausen, I have to tell him the fact that I lied for him. I was like, oh, buddy, he's got to get to
He's
media.
got
He's
stuff to
got to,
do.
yeah, and I
He's
was
a
like,
busy guy. He's
turd.
he's got a 10:30 tea time. I don't fucking.
He's a special dude. So I've never really liked him. There's a guy I don't have any reason to dislike him other than I thought his effort was crap, and that was Armando Allen. I think he was a Bear for a hot minute too. That guy, if a blade of grass was too tall, that dude would hit the deck. Like
Mm.
just anytime he got touched, he would be like he could have 25 yards down the field. If a guy hit his shoulder, he was making what I call, I might have coined this phrase. I called them micro investments in a longer career. Like, why stay up and get hit more? You got 5 yards, get hit and go down. You gained. Good job. I don't think Armando's a bad dude, but I was just like, dude, get off the damn field. There are guys who will do more. So I only have two that I guess I only have two Notre Dame fans, or two Notre Dame players I don't like, and Jimmy's only a half. But Armando Allen used to just piss me off. I just couldn't handle it. I threw lots of things at the floor at the TV when that idiot wouldn't get first downs that you and I could have gotten, Mike. I mean,
Well,
in our
maybe
prime. Not,
what I was about to say. Maybe you. I'm a 5'5" nothing when it comes to sports. So I appreciate the compliment, but you're wrong.
my
Um,
confidence is misplaced.
a little bit. You should keep all that confidence for yourself because you actually played football and I did not. So give me some games that you remember, either games that you've been to, games that you watched on TV that you were like, wow, this is awesome. Good for
Okay.
them. So give me some of your favorite games that you've
All right.
seen or been to.
Okay. Favorite game I ever watched up until the Sugar Bowl this year would have been, I think it was a Citrus Bowl against LSU. I want to say that's who it was. Notre Dame they were wrecked by injuries in the season. I think it was when guys started to kind of opt out. It was just a few years ago. And Ian Book was the quarterback, and he was just doing enough. Like the team just didn't have it that night, and they got into a position where LSU had come down and scored, and it was like, ah, shit, it's over. Thought it, it looked like we had it, and then LSU was just an SEC team that could bully teams.
Mhm.
And it was a lower level bowl, but it was still like, man. And then Ian Book threw a pass, and you can even ask Abby because she was watching the game with me. I was like, do not throw over there, like their best corner. And they threw right at him, and he missed. He jumped to get the interception and missed it. And Miles Boykin, who became a Raven, caught it, and he was more like a tight end than he was a wide receiver, and he just booked it down the every 5 yards. Like, no, they're going to catch him because he's slow. Like, they're going to catch him. They're going to catch him. They're going to catch him. And he scored a touchdown, won the game basically. Not as time expired, but they only had like 6 seconds left at the end of that. And I was like freaking out. I could not believe it. I was so excited to see that. That was back when Kelly was the head coach, and I was happy for him at the time because it was like we beat an SEC team. Now everybody can shut up, that kind of thing. So that was one of my favorite games I ever watched on TV. The Sugar Bowl was my favorite game. This is my favorite game because of everything it means. The 31-year bowl streak is over. New Year's Six, big major bowl, whatever word you want to use. That monkey is dead, 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 dead. This season has been magical, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit.
Oh
Maybe
yeah,
when we talk when
we
we talk
will
about the
talk.
Orange Bowl. So this game just, oh my God, just crazy. So those are two of the best games I've ever watched on TV. Two of my favorites, probably. Another one, also, the game against Stanford in 2012 when Notre Dame had like 6 goal line stands to shut out Stanford and to go to the national championship game against Alabama that year. I was losing my mind in a little bitty house all by myself, just me and Abby and Killian, my old dog. Just all, it was the weirdest thing to just be kind of alone there, but watching it with Abs, and I was just like, oh my God, they're gonna go. And Kurt Wilson, another one of our friends from college, and he was texting me, and he was like, how you doing, man? I was like, I am losing it. Like, I was like almost in tears because I knew we were gonna make. I didn't know if we'd win, but I knew we were gonna go play for a title, and that was huge at the time. So yeah, two games that I love that I've been to. The two of them are wrap around are around my kids. I took Mitchie to a game, and I mean I don't remember what years that was. 2008, maybe eight, maybe seven. It was a loss, but there was 2 feet of snow on Notre Dame Stadium, and we still went. And we watched the Irish play, and they ended up losing on a last second field goal to UConn. That team was not any good at all. They were just so bad, but they ended up still being bowl eligible. UConn was like 3-7, so we thought we'd get another win. And the funniest thing about that game is the snow, but also the fact that my like I don't know so he's 5 or 6. It's maybe 28 degrees. We're sitting on snow because you just can't move that much. And this little boy, my son, is just into the game. He's just like me, just going crazy, go Irish, getting into all the chants and all that kind of stuff. And everybody's like, oh, you don't want to take a kid that young to a game because they'll lose their minds. You and I both have young kids now, and we can, you can imagine what that could be like.
Yep.
He was fine until that field goal that won the game went through the uprights, and then he was the biggest brat of all time. He wanted to go home. He was tired of everything. There's that. Then last year, or the year before, no, yeah, it was last year. Last year, I was talking to a friend who has a Notre Dame podcast and on Twitter, or X, excuse me, formerly FKA Twitter. And we were commenting back and forth on a game, and then like a half an hour later, on an independent, kind of an independent thread, he was like, hey, I just found out I can't go to this game this weekend. Anybody want to take these 4 tickets off my hands? And I was like, yeah, like, I
Yes.
mean, it literally said like 15 seconds ago. And I was like, hey, you still got those tickets? And he was like, yeah, man. So we're talking at like, I don't know, 10:30, 11:30 at night. And I went to bed with Abby, and I was like, I'd already accepted the tickets. Like, I'd already said I'm going to take them. And the guy was like, so what do I owe you? And I said, what do I owe you? And he's like, nothing. I got him. He's a veteran. He's like, I got him from VetTix, so I didn't pay for him. You don't have to pay for him. I know you're an Irish fan. I was like, oh man, that's awesome. And then I was like, oh shit, now I have to go to this game. So I was like, hey babe, you want to go to South Bend this weekend? And she was like, well, what's that going to cost? I was like, nothing. I got to buy one ticket because there's 5 of us. And she's like, are you serious? And I showed her the conversation on Twitter, and she was like, holy cow, oh my God, yeah, we'll go. So we went, and she made it a thing, Mike. Like, we tailgated about as hard as I've ever tailgated, like took a table and a cooker and all this kind of stuff to make food. My wife and I played beer pong against strangers there at the tailgate. It was crazy. So I took all the girls, and now I have 2 girls that want to go to Notre Dame. I don't know if they ever will. I have one who wants to go cheer there. She's a
Okay.
competitive cheerleader, and she wants to go cheer at Notre Dame, and I think that's rad. And then the other one, my oldest girl is kind of a STEM nerd, if you will. I use that in a loving way.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But she like whenever Notre Dame they have commercials. I don't know how often you see them. Like We Are the Fighting Irish, and they talk about the programs at the university. She's seen two about robotics, and she just thinks it's the neatest thing. So when we went there, she's like, "I want to go to school here," and I was like, "You got to work really hard, but if you want to do it, I will find a way to make sure you get there," kind of thing. So that was awesome. So those two games, my favorite two games I've ever been to. I'll tell you two games that I am the most disappointed by. And there's a lot that have been disappointing in the past, but the biggest one, and it's not the 2012 national championship game, because that was Alabama when Alabama was about to be a dynasty.
It just got out of hand really quick,
Yep.
and Notre Dame just not
no,
their night.
No, yeah, it was not their night. No one, it reminds me a lot of the game the other day between Oregon and Ohio State, where you had a team that had been like unblemished all season long, and then they just got caught on the wrong night, and the score got too far for them to ever catch. They came back from the half, and Notre Dame scored twice, and it was like, oh, well, if they weren't already down by 40, they could make a comeback. So long story short, but it's not that one. There's two of them. The first one is the 2005 game with Reggie Bush, the Bush push, because that was the game where all of a sudden, like for that whole USC was ascendant, and they were awesome, and they had arguably one of the greatest, most explosive college football players in history on their team. And just they were like the Dallas Cowboys of the 90s. They had two awesome running backs. Everybody forgets LenDale White because he was fat and slow, but he was awesome. I mean, if it was within 3 yards, you could crash LenDale into it, and he'd get that first down or whatever you wanted. LenDale White, Reggie Bush, the two guys on the wide receivers, I can't remember, and because I don't care because they're from USA. And then Matt Leinart, who I've actually grown to love through his social media presence because he's pretty funny. But anyway, those guys, I mean, they were awesome, and Notre Dame stuck there toe to toe, fist to fist the whole time. We had a shot, and then the reason why it's so disappointing, a lot of bullshit happened at the end of that game where that game was stolen. And I don't mean like on purpose, but I think the refs made a bad call, and not like they missed something. I think they all got confused because the game is like over, but then it's not over. And then unlike college basketball or basketball where if you call a timeout you don't have, it's a technical foul in basketball. In college football, they just don't give you the timeout, which I think is ridiculous. That should be like some sort of delay of game or unsportsmanlike conduct, because the whole time Carroll's calling timeout and he knows he doesn't have one. And then all of a sudden, the last couple seconds happen. They also aid the runner, which until that moment was illegal. Mm-hmm. Okay, that should have been a 15-yard flag too, or at least a 5-yard flag. But anyway, the touchdown wouldn't have counted. They would have had to go again. And but that game, it was just like everything was like, oh my God, we're gonna do it. We're back. It's been 12 years since we kind of mattered, and then just in a poof, gone. And then Notre Dame actually went on a run for most of the rest of that season, ends up in a bowl game and just gets annihilated, mm-hmm. And it was just like, maybe we weren't always there, and that's the thing that makes it sadder is we were there that day, and then, but, Zibby's punt return and all, oh my God, there's so many things I remember from that. Mm-hmm. Just amazing game. It was an amazing game until the last 12 seconds, and then I was like, "Oh my God, this is the worst experience of my life." The other game, it's a game that does not matter. It was 2 years ago. My wife, I was sitting there being kind of a grouch, being like, "I never get to go to games," or I want to go to a game. I wanted her to go to a game, and she was like, "Well, I just don't have time. We got all these kids and everything," and she was like, "Why don't you go by yourself?" And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, if it doesn't cost $1 million, just go get a hotel room. Because I've been traveling for work for years. So it's like, you got all these points, you got all these free rooms, like you just went on yourself." And I was like, oh my God, yeah. So I got like a $65 Notre Dame ticket to watch him play Marshall, because I was like, I'm going to pick a game we're going to win. Okay. It's Marcus's first year. Okay. And I was like, this will be a fun game to go. We're going to slaughter these birds. So I get over there, do all the stuff I've ever wanted to do, and I've never been able to do it because I always have someone I'm taking with me, and it's like, oh, we're going to get to the game late. Like even just a couple of years ago, when Adam and our friend Adam Rachonsky and I went to a game, and it was like, I was like, when do you want to leave? And he's like 10:30. I was like, oh, bruh. So we get over there, we do a little bit of stuff, and there's a bunch of post game stuff I'd always wanted to do and just never had time. So I got to do all that stuff. I went to mass in a crypt under one of the buildings. It was so this old nun was like, "Hey, hon," I'm not even Catholic. She's like, "Do you want to come to mass?" And I was like,
Okay.
Oh, I was like, maybe. And she's like, it's down here in these catacombs. I was like, yes, that's metal AF. So yeah, let's do that. So I did all this cool stuff. They lose to Marshall, and it wasn't like it was a stupid herky-jerky game. There was nothing to be excited about. It just was the worst. And the reason why it's the game I'm the most disappointed by, because it was the game I was supposed to have the most fun. I was there by myself, just me and my 85,000 closest friends watching this game. And we were supposed to watch a slaughtering. And then I was going to go to the bar and have all this fun. I ended up going to the bar. They had college drink specials, like two 32-ounce drafts for $3. I was like, oh my gosh, this
I
is going to be one of the nights.
miss I miss those days sometimes as opposed to paying like $35 for like a can of beer.
Oh my gosh, you dude, you have, I mean, and yeah, it's the stupidest thing. But so that game. I mean, the game we lost anyway, but it was more that it was just kind of crapped on my whole weekend, you know.
Mm.
And the funny thing is I ended up talking to my mom. Like, I was waiting for an Uber. I was waiting for surge pricing to go down, and
Ah,
I talked to my mom for like half an hour, and she was like, "Are you drunk?" I was like, "Yeah." And then she was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Walking around South Bend." She's like, "Are you safe?" And I was like, "I think so." But it was good. And she was like, how'd the game go? I was like, "It was terrible." And she goes, "But you sound like you're having a good time." I was like, "Yeah, because I'm walking around like my favorite place in the world, you know, by myself, doing my thing."
mhm.
So not South Bend. South Bend's not my favorite, but Notre Dame.
Oh yeah, I understand
If
what you're
you've
talking
ever been
about.
there, it's a town that needs some help, but it's but the shining jewel on the hill is that Golden Dome. So,
Right.
but yeah, so those are the games I hate. Just I hate them the most. There's other games that I've watched that I was just like, Jesus, you know. But no,
But
this and then yeah,
but those are the two that just stand out to you.
this games where I was like disgusted basically.
Mm.
So
All right, you brought it up. Let's talk about current state of the team. So as we are recording this, the Orange Bowl is a couple of days away, and they are playing Penn State, and this is for a trip to the national title game.
mhm.
So, in your estimation, what has the season meant to you as an Irish fan?
Okay, this season. So this season's meant a lot, not just as an Irish fan, but like so as a dad too, I guess. So Notre Dame started the season. I'll try to do this succinctly. So Notre Dame started the season against Texas A&M on August 31st. Well, my son, my newest baby, was born on August 31st, and he was born in the morning. And I had joked when my wife and I went to the hospital at like 1 in the morning that I told her, I was like, you have like 13 hours to get this figured out, and then I don't have attention for this anymore. You know, just kidding. But but I was like, the funny part was like as I was like moving the car, I was listening to a Notre Dame podcast. Like I was
Hmm.
moving a car around the parking lot. So, and I was listening to the podcast like whenever she was doing other stuff where I wasn't like involved. I was so ready for that game. And we have Clay, and he's awesome, and just everything. And then Abby took that mama nap at like right about kickoff, so I got to hold him for 3 hours watching the game,
Hmm.
and it was awesome. So I was riding this high, new dad, new little boy. After a string of four girls, it was awesome to get, to get a
A
little boy,
dude, yeah.
another dude. So it was rad. So I'm watching the game with him, and I was just like, man, this is awesome. There was actually a guy who came in, an orderly came in, and he was like, "Are you watching the game?" And he's like, "You a Notre Dame fan?" I was like, "Huge Notre Dame fan." He's like, "Awesome." He's like, "It's a boy or a girl?" I was like, "Little boy." He's like, "Oh man," blah blah blah. Just went crazy. He like stuck his head in like a couple hours later, like right after the game was over. He's like, "Go Irish!" It was so funny. But big time for us. Then we go to losing an NIU. Okay, another one of those games where I was like, "Oh, you God, guys, what's going on?" And I said a lot of horrible things about Riley Leonard after that game. If you check my ex, there's like lots of things that are probably going to come back to bite me someday. But I
Eh,
do love Riley. I loved him to begin with. He's a really good kid, but for a hot minute, I was like, he's just not it. He doesn't have it. And Marcus should have known that. Coach Freeman should have had a better. So I was pissed about that. And then they come back and like kill Purdue, and Miami of Ohio looked like it might have been another NIU game until they pulled away. And then it was just like ass kicking after ass kicking after ass kicking. And I was like, okay. I was like, let's see what's going on. But everybody wanted to talk about that damn NIU game, which is fine, okay? Which is fine. Okay, they lost NIU. That sucks. Lots of stuff, right? Just horrible. However, I will say this: the worst loss ever, in my estimation, in college football history, is actually when Michigan lost to Division 1 AA Appalachian State back
oh
in
yeah,
2007.
absolutely.
Like I don't want to hear a Michigan fan, especially with the other crap that's swirling around that program, want to hear word one about NIU ever. And one of my best coworker friends is a Michigan fan, and he went to start the first time we'd seen each other in about a month and a half, and I was like, no, no, no. He's like, you're right, you're okay, and I was like, don't even because we were
You came
scheduled to have
ready to
lunch.
go. Yeah, you came ready to go.
I almost bought. We planned a lunch a couple weeks ahead of time. I almost bought an Appalachian State shirt just to be like, look, okay, don't ever forget where you came from. But anyway,
That is a level of pettiness that I
well,
just adore of
right.
you.
So anyway, so this season has been awesome. The kind of all the payback. I got that first moment with my son. I we were talking about this before we came on, started recording. I got to go to LA to watch him beat the Trojans in the Coliseum. It was so much fun, and it like kind of sealed the season. We go out there. I also got to see two of the coolest things, two 98-yard plus interception returns back to back. I mean, it was just crazy. The game was tight and then it wasn't.
Mm.
So that was a great season. Then we get in the playoffs. Dude, I could go on for a year and a half about how this playoff system is kind of stupid. I think 12 teams is too many, but I won't die on that hill. I just think 12 teams is too many. We have too many blowouts.
Yeah.
We've had too many blowouts when it was 4 teams. Like maybe the BCS was the closest thing we had to perfect. We just didn't like it. So now instead of having computers tell us who the better team is, we have people get into a room and tell us that a team with one loss is not as good as a team with two losses or three losses, or that somehow Alabama and Ole Miss, who have 3 and 4 losses, should, in a hypothetical, could beat
Hmm.
every team in the play, all that kind of silly stuff. But so the Irish get in, and we get Indiana, which I'm not going to lie to you, I was ecstatic. The only better first team draw we could have got, our first round draw we could have got, was probably SMU. But I didn't want SMU because I didn't want the guys to pull an NIU and be like, we got this in the bag, and
Mm.
then all of a sudden get rolled, and then I have to hear about that for the next 400 years. So beating IU and then beating the crap out of them was awesome. With 4 minutes to go, it was still like whatever, 27-3. They scored a couple of garbage times touchdowns, but like that was also on like 2/3 of the starter. Like
Yeah. Yeah. The
the
game
game
was
was
over by then.
the game was over. You weren't coming back. You didn't have enough time. I mean, even if they scored another touchdown, they're still down by 3. So they were running out of time. Also, the crap Kurt Signetti said before the game, nothing was better. It's like, I don't typically drag opposing coaches because I want a guy like Kurt Signetti in a lot of ways to be like, we are the best. But first off, have some receipts to back that up. And number two, don't leave your team 2 hours before the game to come talk crap on TV. Like that's not where you're supposed to be, Chief. Like say that crap in the tunnel, or say it like on the sideline. Don't make it about you. And then it was awesome to watch him eat like 7 shovels of poop about that. And then the game against Georgia, and I'm going to say it here, and it'll be saved for eternity on the internet. I was not sure how that game was going to go. I'm always, me, I'm a huge optimist. And I was like, I think we got this, but it's still an SEC team.
It's still Georgia
It's
too.
still Georgia. They're, a year and 2 seasons removed from national championships, and they're back-to-back titleists to make that. Kirby is a good coach. And I always thought the world of Kirby Smart when he worked for Nick Saban. I think he stayed there way longer than he needed to. He deserved a better job at any time, but Georgia was a hell of a place to land. And so I wasn't sure what was going on. The strip sack fumble at the end of the first half, that's when I was like, I think we got this, because I don't know if I think 10 point with the way those offenses were struggling. I was like, I don't think a team can come back from 10 down in this game. And then the kickoff return to start the half, or near the beginning of the second half, I was like, it's over. We're up by 17. We can coast, because their offense hasn't done Dick Diddley. And this is also before Jeremiah Love got a little dinged up and they pulled him. I was like, we're just going to churn this game. Like, we're just going to run the ball for the next, I was texting a buddy of mine and I said, Notre Dame needs a 6-minute drive and just points, 3, 7, doesn't matter. And this game's toast. And then they got it. They got that 7-minute drive for 41 yards. I was like, this is the longest, shortest drive I've ever
Mm.
seen. But that's all it took. They got down there. They got it over. And Georgia goes down, which I think everybody outside of Athens, Georgia, probably breathes a sigh of relief, because, God, we're tired of the SEC. Granted, Texas is still there, but as far as I'm concerned, Texas the SEC had to go to the transfer portal to get a championship contender, and because Texas is what, 8 months into an SEC life.
Right.
So no, I'm super excited about that game. We got over a lot of hurdles. We won that big bowl. Also, Marcus Freeman is right now the most successful coach since Lou Holtz, period.
Mm.
And Coach Kelly, and that's probably a topic for another podcast. Coach Kelly he's the all-time wins leader, but he never hoisted a Sugar Bowl trophy or a Cotton Bowl trophy or anything like that. And Marcus is younger than me and has a Sugar Bowl championship. And before we go into the next step of this season is magnificent, memorable, and cannot be a disappointment now. I still think that the Irish have a really good path to the title. I think they can win. I think they are the second most likely team to win the championship. I think Ohio State, unless the team that showed up against Oregon, Michigan, like Oregon the first time, or Michigan, if that team shows up, the Irish walk, and it's not even close. But Ohio State also did just put a thumping on Oregon the other day. So if that team shows up, it could be a long day for Irish fans. But I also think our defense is superior to Oregon's defense. I think it's a different stratosphere. So there's that. I don't think especially because Notre Dame, one of the things that's traditionally been a Notre Dame weakness has been the secondary of the defensive secondary. That's not a thing anymore. Okay. Like multi-year All-Americans in that backfield. So I think that's good. Drawing Penn State, especially because they haven't played anyone all year. Anyone. They played Ohio State, or excuse me, they played Oregon. Oh, they played Oregon, Ohio State, and lost to both of them. So like,
Not looking like a favorable matchup potentially for Penn State.
for Penn State, they have good players. They are a decent team. But I will always say this: since James Franklin has come to Penn State, they are the biggest frauds because they only win the games they're supposed to. They never win games that could take them to the next level. I don't think James Franklin is a bad coach. I don't think Penn State is a bad team. I just think they're one step above IU, one step above Indiana. They have a talent level above Indiana, but that's it. They're an unproven team that still hasn't won anything. Now, watch, they could end up beating Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl, but I think this is going to be another low scoring trudge of a game in the Orange Bowl. I mean, I could see the Irish, like, whoever wins, it's probably like 27-20, 23-24, something like that. That's kind of the prediction. But no, this up until the end of the game the other night, or from that moment, from the end of the game the other night, this has been a magical season. Marcus Freeman has etched his name at Notre Dame. It doesn't matter anymore. He'll do other great things, and if he wins the title, I mean, wow.
He cemented himself as just a all-timer.
Yeah, I mean, it took him 3 years. I don't know if you know this. Notre Dame has a mythos about the third year in a coach's career. It goes back like, let's see, where did it start? I think it started with Leahy. He won a national title in his third year and won in third year. Holtz won it in his third year. Kelly played for one in his third year. And then Marcus is on the path. We'll see. But he won a big bowl in his third year, which is good enough for me because that was a 31-year stupidity. Just there were a lot of games lost that shouldn't have been lost in those years. But no, this season has been awesome. It's been wild to watch an Irish team play to their potential, barring the NIU loss. But every loss since then, and that's another thing that I'll talk about real quick with Coach Freeman. That dude took the biggest what the fuck moment in this season, and probably in Notre Dame, I won't say history, but Notre Dame's recent history, and turned it into the biggest catalyst of all time. Like, the margin of victory for Notre Dame became enormous. I don't remember what it is now because the playoff games have messed it up.
I've kind of messed it up, yeah.
Yeah, but it was ridiculous. And then like the one thing I realized I didn't realize or ABC told us was Notre Dame has the most points off turnovers this season.
Oh, okay.
By 42 points to the next team.
Jesus.
So that's a lot.
That's a lot.
It was crazy. I didn't know that, but those turnovers have been immense. Like being able to force those turnovers and take the ball away when they need to, and like steal those possessions, just show how great this defense is. And like it's an all-time defense, period. So this season has been magical. I sound too serious right now. Like I'm not as jubilant as I want to sound, but I'm stoked. I wear Notre Dame stuff every day. Not that that's much of a change, but like I spent a little bit of cash there around Christmas to buy some new stuff.
Nice.
So I have more things to wear. So, but huge season, just fantastic.
So for you, this season is extra special because of not only their success, but what it means to, your new addition to your family as well. So that's awesome though. And I'm going to give you a chance to predict who do you think is actually going to take this home, and give me a score prediction as well, because we're not going to, this is going to release after the Orange Bowl. So who do you think, like, give me your national championship prediction game and then who wins?
All right. So national championship game, not the Orange Bowl. All right. My prediction
Because
for the national.
are,
Yeah,
are we just going to assume that Notre Dame should?
I don't. I hate doing that, but
Okay,
I'm going to
okay.
assume. I'm going to assume. I'll give you a prediction you didn't ask for. I think Notre Dame wins the. I think Notre Dame wins the Orange Bowl 27-21, and I think one of those touchdowns is. I think one of Penn State's touchdowns comes in like the last 3 minutes when it doesn't matter anymore. All of the scoring, even though that sounds kind of a high scoring game, all of that scoring is like it's two steps forward, one step back. It's a trudge. It's chunk plays that end up doing something. Probably a couple points off turnovers. That's how Notre Dame gets to 27, and I think they can do enough to stop Drew Aller, the quarterback at Penn State, from doing anything. I think he'll have a game. I think he'll score. I think there'll be some open receivers once in a while. But I also think Notre Dame, because both running backs are healthy and the line is as good as it's going to get, I think if Notre Dame gets a lead, they can just take the game away from Penn State. And James Franklin is known for falling apart in big games. So we'll see how that goes. But that's that one. National championship game with that prediction in mind. I think I'm going to go against the expert picks. I think it's Notre Dame and Texas, and I think it's a game for all time. And I think that game ends up being Irish 24, Texas either 21 or 23. Like right there, like we're talking last. Like I think it would be the most poetic thing for the Irish to be 21-21 with Texas, and their field goal kicker, Mitch Jeter, who hurt his groin earlier in the year and really struggled once he got healthy, comes in last second and puts it over the top to just become, like you said a minute ago, an all-timer. That's what I think. I think it's 24-21, 24-23, like something like that. Just an epic. I hope it is. Like even if the Irish went and like scored 66-0, like that would not be as satisfying as like
Gutting
this,
it out and
yeah, the game for the ages. And the other thing is like part of my prediction is based on the fact that over the last few weeks, Ohio State has not been what I would consider completely like they whooped up on those two teams, but there's still that Michigan loss. And I have a bad feeling Ryan Day is going to get into Michigan mindset when they start really talking about this game against Texas. Because right now it's the Notre Dame Penn State games, what everyone wants to talk about. I think once he starts hearing that he has to go against an SEC team and be a tough boy about it, that he's going to try to out tough Texas, and I don't think he's got it to do it. That is an air raid team. They just need to sit up and throw the rock, and Ohio State will just kill Texas. If they get into a game where Ryan Day decides he wants to prove something, Texas will win. And Texas has two good quarterbacks. They have Quinn Ewers and they have Archie Manning. They're going to do some stuff. But I think Texas wins mostly because I want to play another SEC team in the national championship game, so the Irish can say we beat two of them. See ya. Never talk about it again. I think if we so that's the prediction. If we end up with Ohio State, I think that game is another one that could be epic. But I couldn't even make the prediction because I don't know what team shows up for Ohio State. It could either be a low score and slog, or it looks like Notre Dame shouldn't have been there. It could be either one of those. But also, like we've watched the Irish put some points on people. But no, I think the Irish take it. My caveat, honorable mention, is that Ohio State's probably the most likely team to win the national title, though. They're good, and if they show up, they're real good.
I'm gonna cut that last part out because I don't like the idea of Ohio State fans just having another one
I agree.
on people.
I agree. Good, cut
So
that out. That's fine. I didn't like saying it anyway, so just get rid of that. No, I think, but no, my prediction is Irish over Texas 24-23. We'll make it nice and crazy there at the end for that one. Dude, and if that happens, oh my gosh, here is a little personal note. I go back to work from my parental leave I have to travel on Martin Luther King Day. I will be in Atlanta where the national championship game is happening for work So I have to watch that game by myself. And I mean, I'll probably end up going to watch it, like not go watch the game. Tickets are ridiculous, but go like find a bar to hole up in or something. Because I don't have to be anywhere until the morning, like 9 o'clock in the morning the next day. But I want to be watching that game here at home because I wish that I could be holding my little dude and hanging out with the girls decked out in their Notre Dame stuff. If Notre Dame's ahead when there's zeros on the clock, and that would just top it off 1,000%. But if I have to watch it alone eating Wingstop in my hotel room, then it will be the greatest Wingstop I've ever eaten, and it'll be crazy. So, but no, I think this season is magical, and that's what makes me think they're still going to pull it off. Well, one last quick note I want to make on that. Look at all these teams that had all these curses, all these long droughts, and all the sports. Like, you're a Cubs fan. Those boys pulled it off in 2016, much to my St. Louis Cardinal fan chagrin. But they did it, and that's awesome. And the Red Sox did it before them. Michigan had a very asterisk, but Michigan had a very long drought,
Right.
and they won. They won last year. I think it would be epic to go whatever the heck we've done for the last 15 years, and then go Michigan, Notre Dame, back-to-back champs, like the original like football playing powerhouses. I think that would be rad.
Yep.
And I think that's what I think in a time when all we do is tear down the tradition of the sport. That tradition is the most important part of. Okay, to see another traditional powerhouse win the whole dang thing and silence the haters, end all the droughts. I think for college football, no matter how much someone listening to this thinks Notre Dame sucks, for a minute, I'll take a little bit of what Billy Beane once said, and it's hard not to be romantic about Notre Dame football. Okay, and that's what it is. Maybe I could have just said that at the beginning of this when we were talking.
No.
But that's it, man. It's hard not to be romantic. It's hard to not take this magical season and everything Freeman's done and not be like, holy cow, I got to live through this, because it has been a struggle the last handful of years.
Robert, I'm a long story or a short story long kind of guy. So,
Yes, absolutely.
I'm glad that we got to that point, and I think we'll just leave it at that. So, Bobbie, thank you very much for your time and for coming on talking about your Notre Dame fandom. Do you have anything you want to plug, and where can the people find you if they want to get more tips if you are correct about your Irish prediction?
Yeah, if anybody listening wants to hear me rant about Notre Dame, or not hear, read, my X FKA Twitter handle is at Bobbie, Bobbie Mitchell, Mitchell. All, that's it. You'll see a lot of Notre Dame stuff. You'll see a lot of college football guff, and you'll see the term derp a lot because I like to police hot takes. So there's that. That's where I'm at, and maybe there'll be some more stuff in the future. Mikey will come on here and tell you some more about that at some point.
Yeah, for sure. I had a feeling that this would not be the last time that you will be on this. So I've been, kicking the tires around bringing you and Adam on at the same time. So we'll figure that out and we'll go from there. But check out Bobbie's Twitter handle for his sports hot takes and any Nosferatu tips if he is correct with his prediction. But that's going to do it for this episode of Sportsball. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to anything and everything SPDM Crew wherever you get your podcast. Join us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, YouTube, and Blue Sky at SPDM Crew. Check out our website at spdmcrew.com. Shout out to HiFlyer Creative Studios for making our awesome logo. Greatly appreciate their support. And if you have any marketing, logo, or brand standard needs, contact them at HiFlyerCreative.com. If you've got a podcast idea or you're interested in being part of the SPDM Crew as a guest or collaborating, email us at spdmcrew@gmail.com. Until next time, pain heals, chicks dig scars, glory lasts forever.